And welcome back. Today I am making a little guide on CLEAF and essentially which skills I've prioritized throughout the game, and I'll try to explain it for both early in game as well as later into the game once you have a lot of additional skill points. Uh, the skills you see here, of course, a lot of them are pretty maxed. So for example, this tree is also fully maxed. Uh, Here I think like only one skill is missing a skill up, but that's just because I have almost 700 skill points invested into him. So if you do not have that many skill ups, do not worry, as uh, I'll try to explain which skills you should prioritize one by one to ensure that you do have a decent progress with him skill wise. One thing I want to note is that earlier on, the powers themselves will be way more important than unlocking cheap ones. Just because you will be lacking in certain areas which the power ups can substitute. Later on, once you have like 500 or 600 and more skill points, you should start investing into random abilities that are simply cheap, base basically just for the raw power gain. As in some cases, leveling up, for example, your first skill would cost 30 points and you would get around 400 power, whereas maxing out a skill that costs 1 point will give you 200 power. So you need to find that fair balance between when you think you have enough uh, skill points to uh, add to abilities where they matter, and once those abilities that do matter are maxed out, you should start investing into the random stuff just for pure power and allowing you to get that additional power bonus and damage bonus, damage reduce bonus, just because you have more power than the enemy dungeon. Okay, so to start the guide, I'll go explain which abilities are the most important until you get around 2 to 300 points, so rather skill points. So starting off, this is pretty much no matter which champion, this tree is the one you will be starting off. And the first two abilities you do need to max out are the mental discipline and concentration. Because monsters pretty much run the game, you do want to max out the mana to allow your soul linked unit to have as much potential as possible. Once the mana and mana regen is maxed, on average, your soul linked unit will be able to use 2 times more, or rather, use his abilities 2 times more often than your other slots. So these are extremely important. Uh, as to which you should max first, I maxed my total mana first, just because in a lot of dungeons you do want to do those initial combos, but in my opinion, concentration will be actually more efficient in the overall mana gain throughout the fight, especially if the fight lasts a little longer, so like half a minute and more. Focus on concentration and mental discipline. You can max them equally. You can go for concentration first. If you really like having that total mana first, you can go for this as well. But make sure that these two are maxed before any other skill in the game. Once you have these two maxed and are looking to improve on your abilities in manual play, I actually recommend unlocking the consecutive evasion up to level 3. First of all, this may not be too important for you early, unless you manually play a lot. But once you get into a little bit higher dungeons, especially even throughout the story mode, first of all, these dashes will allow you to travel faster in dungeon rooms, allowing you to complete the dungeon a little bit faster and saving more time. And second of all, these will become super important later on once you are trying to tackle especially raids like elite raids. So make sure to drop at least 1 or 2 levels into this one. And I believe the rest should be left out for now, and after that you should be looking into the very rightmost tree. So the skills here, you can max them in my opinion pretty equally. However, you should put more focus on the protection shield, as this skill directly affects all your monsters as well as your enemies, not enemy summoner but your summoner, and they reduce a lot of damage that enemies deal. So on yourself, you will be at max level, you will be taking 20% less damage, and your team will be taking 10% less damage overall. This of course affects only bosses, but uh, bosses are the main thing you are countering in the early slash mid game, and you are not looking into min-maxing your potential in PvP. So bosses is pretty much all you should focus on countering for the first few weeks of your game, and until then I definitely recommend maxing this one out. If you cannot max it out right off the bat, of course you might need a certain summoner level requirement, so whenever possible make sure to upgrade this skill as much as possible. As for other skills in this tree, the first two are super important because they affect your monsters, so you should definitely invest into these two as well. You can max them equally as they are sort of equally important. Monster defense may be a tiny bit more important, however, the activation requirement will be a little harder to pull off than the magic shield. But yeah, invest into these two equally. You can skip these two for now as they only affect the summoner, and the summoner for in CLEAF's case will not be too important early on. And the next one you should max, or rather not max, but make sure that you have it upgraded at least a little bit. My recommendation is to get Endure up to 13 seconds. At max it is 15, but I believe there is a certain levels where the Endure will be the same duration, so try to get at least towards 13 seconds, which I found to be a sweet spot for countering a lot of the dungeons, as with CLEAF, a lot of PvE dungeons that you focus on, the boss will actually drop you to 0 HP and you'll be purely surviving on that endure. And having those few extra seconds of endure allows both your summoner as well as your monsters to finish up the boss and actually get a lot more wins. So definitely don't underestimate this skill and try to get it to at least 13 seconds. If you have the extra points, of course you can fully max it out as they are not that expensive here. And as for the other ones, I believe, yeah, those are not too important. And after you are done with that, you should start prioritizing your uh, basic abilities and charged abilities tree. As for which elements are worth using, I found that the water cleave actually pretty much can be used as a single debuffer to destroy the boss's damage a lot. His first skill and third skill, I believe, the first skill deals attack drop damage, and the third skill also deals attack down. And once you have level 3 attack down, this skill actually also applies attack speed down. So essentially, with CLEAF alone, you can easily drop the boss's damage by almost, well, it's not half since it only reduces attack down, but you're potentially looking at a good 30% of the damage being reduced just from the attack bar alone. On top of that, if you are able to land attack speed down, you are dropping the damage by additional sort of 20% again. So just with the water cleave, you are able to debuff the boss so much that he will simply start doing 0 damage to all your units, and you will be able to easily either outshield or out-heal the boss's damage. If you do not want to use the water one, after unlocking level 50, light is another good option. This is more of a less debuff heavy build, but it focuses on protecting your nuker. So if you have, for example, one big damage dealer in your team, the first skill can, not the first skill, I believe, let me see, one of the skills protects your ally unit with invincibility. I'm not sure which one, but it does not scale, so it's not too important. Essentially, the light one will allow you to both put up invincibility on yourself and one of your damage dealer units. This means that if you and the enemy, or rather your damage dealer, are getting targeted by the boss a lot, this will in most cases offer you more sustain than the border one by just debuffing the boss. And this is especially important for stuff like TOA bosses, where you are receiving a huge amount of burst damage, and just allowing you to fully protect two of your units, so your summoner and your highest damage dealing unit, allows you to pull off that victory just a little bit easier. But yeah, for most PvE content, and actually even PvP content, stuff like Battlefield, I found that the water CLEAF build works the best due to the sheer debuffs it provides, making the boss's damage pretty much uh, non-existent, if I even can push it that far. As for whether you should max them out, the first skill and the, well, not the first skill, but the basic attack and the second skill, in my opinion, are not worth maxing until very late on. What you should focus is on powering up your first skill quite a bit, and then jumping onto your third skill and powering that one quite a bit, as those will, first of all, increase the chance to land those attack breaks and speed breaks, and second of all, it will increase the duration of them, allowing you to simply handicap the boss for that much longer. Once high enough, you should have an easy time actually having the boss permanently on attack break and even speed break, allowing you to just have a way easier time doing damage. As for those, I would actually leave them both at level 1. You should also leave your ultimate at level 1. I only maxed it because purely of the power gain that you get later on, because I had a lot of additional power, but you should not focus these three and instead go for the first and third skill. Try to get them to like level 4, level 5 at least, as they will be providing the main debuffs for you. Once you're done with that, you can start to branch out into other abilities from these two trees. So first of all, I would recommend going a little bit deeper into the passive abilities. So starting with maxing these two, which will allow you to, I believe it's these two, right? Yeah. So these will depend on the monster HP and your caster HP, but they will mostly be buffing CLEAF himself rather than your monsters. And once you have these a little bit upgraded, you can go into maxing these two a bit as well, as they will just provide that overall a little bit of sustain, as well as more damage for CLEAF in certain scenarios. Since a lot of the skills, mostly third skills, provoke, you can get a little bit of extra damage from there. But yeah, importantly, try to look into upgrading this whole skill tree a lot. And the moment you branch out into elite raids is when you should get back to this tree and start upgrading stuff from it. So first of all, starting with Foggy Prison, you should have your consecutive evasion maxed by this point, and you should also put a few upgrades. Of course, it's best to max it out, but at least have a few upgrades into here to make sure that the dodge ability recharges way faster. You'll of course have these maxed by now, and you can start maxing these into even later rates. So for example, let me see which one it is. The ultimate is not important in my opinion. Yeah, so first of all, I recommend going a little skill points into this one, as you will be able to switch out your units in battle way more frequently. I believe at level 1 it's 15 seconds, and at level 10 it's 1 second. This is extremely important in raids like the Boiling Waterfall, or in some cases even the White Shadow Castle, as you might need to switch out some units to deal either debuffs, heal you up, buff you up. So yeah, this one is a decent ability for that. As for weapons, it's not too important, but by this point you are looking at purely increasing your power, and this ability compared to either elementals or these skills will land a little bit more value compared to those. So you could look into maxing out these two a bit. This one, I'm not sure whether this one is worth maxing at all until the very late, and when you are going for power as well, as if a unit dies, it pretty much does not help you complete the run, and in most cases it will only be important for power numbers as well. And yeah, once these are maxed, head over to the elemental tower, and not tower but elemental research, and check which elements you use the most. As for me, I use water mostly, and the light one is my second best. So you can feel free to drop a few points into the element you use the most, as the power gain compared to the cost is actually pretty good. As you can see, like the first two levels would cost you 6 points, and it will actually gain you like 300 power or so per upgrade. So it's a definitely decent upgrade. Only upgrade the elements that you use, as if you, for example, never use the fire weapon but upgrade this one, you will actually not get any power at all. It only affects the element that you currently have an active weapon on. And by this point, you will have your main abilities maxed out, or at least very close to maxing out. And this will mostly happen around 5 to 600 skill point cap. And by now, you are looking to purely increase your power, as the abilities themselves do not grant too many debuffs or too many useful abilities. So you can start looking at the cheapest upgrades. However, keep in mind that certain abilities give a little bit more power compared to the others. So try to calculate the, how should I say, power per skill point ratio and work from there. So for example, the main skills give, from what I've seen, the highest amount of power. So each upgrade for me grants around 450 power. So you should start with maxing a few of these. Start with the second skill, as the second skill does give decent debuffs for some elements. Once that is like level 2, 3, maybe even 4, drop a few upgrades into the basic attack. It doesn't upgrade much other than the raw damage you deal. However, keep in mind that this is the basic ability, and that scaling might stack up a little bit as you move forward with your upgrades. And after this is like level 3 or 4, feel free to drop a few points into your ultimate. I actually made a mistake there, and I maxed my ultimate too early. So that sort of ruined my progress a bit. But yeah, begin with the second skill, drop a few into the basic and a few into the ultimate. And by now, these abilities will become quite expensive, even at level 5. As you can see, it costs 13. You will have cheaper options to gain power from these two trees. It's mostly going to be this one, but this tree might have some skills unmaxed, like the last one here. As you can see, even the level 7 actually costs only 7 skill points. So the power you gain per skill point invested will jump up a lot. These skills mostly grant like 1 to 200 power each, regardless of which skill point you upgrade from a certain tree. They will all grant you equal power. So start slowly maxing out the cheapest ones, and you'll simply see your power number rise slowly. And from there on out, you'll simply be increasing your skill points slowly and dropping a few more into each skill tree from both your abilities as well as the passive and utilities. You should not upgrade too much into the attribute, as they do get quite expensive at level 6. You can see the upgrade already costs 19, and the power you get in most cases will not be as much as from these two trees. And yeah, hopefully this sheds some light on the path that I've used and the path I recommend using for both very early as well as progressing into the game, into that 300 to 400 skill point territory, where you are starting to do more endgame content like elite raids and stuff like that. And yeah, hopefully this helped you out, and see you in the next one.